The Megaman X franchise, despite its ups and downs, is still fondly remembered as one of the best action platformer franchises ever made, especially that first one. But aside from a few collections, re-releases, and crossovers here and there, the series has mostly remained dormant for many, many years. And who knows when we'll see X or Zero again. But for those of you craving that classic platforming action, all hope is not lost. Not you! I'm talking Azure Striker Gunvolt. Originally released for the Nintendo 3DS and later ported to the Switch, PS4, and PC, which by the by is the version we're looking at, Azure Striker Gunvolt is without a doubt the spiritual successor to the Megaman X franchise. Which isn't surprising, seeing as it was developed by Inti Creates, or basically a company made up of former Capcom employees who worked on the Mega Man Zero and ZX franchises. Hey everyone, it's Spammer D. So, that dev team, you might actually remember them as the ones behind A Dragon Marked for Death, another game we covered here on the channel. So you know we're already off to a pretty good start. You play as Gunvolt, a blonde, spiky-haired mercenary working with a resistance group fighting against an evil energy company trying to control the world. By controlling the power of the Atoms, superpowered humans, which you are a part of. Following a cool anime-style still-frame cutscene to help set up the scenario, you are immediately dropped into your first mission to get your bearings, before branching off into the level select. So, Mega Man X style. And, as a spiritual successor, as expected, Gunvolt and X do share a lot of similarities, outside of just visual presentation and a blue color scheme. Both games are action platformers, meaning a lot of jumping, running, and gunning. Like X, Gunvolt, shockingly, has a gun. Sort of. He also has a dash and can even do this wall jump trick. Which all just feels right, as the controls are tight and the jumping is spot on. But let's not just dismiss Gunvolt as a mere carbon copy, as he brings a unique spin to the formula by showing off just what a proactive hero he is, helping out law enforcement by tagging the bodies.
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
So that gun I mentioned before. Well, at first glance, that might seem like the Azure Striker's main form of attack, but it most certainly is not. While capable of doing damage, the gun is merely a tool. Shooting your foe or foes will tag them, and once they're tagged, your electric blast will hone in on them from anywhere on the screen, shaving away at their health until that big and of course, you can stack tags for maximum damage. Seems simple enough, and that's because it is. Add in different gun types to further customize your shooting style. My personal favorite is Orochi, and you'll be lighting up baddies faster than you can say Azure Striker Gunvolt. Because, you know, that title just rolls off the tongue. And well, yes, it is a very unique and very interesting way of fighting, but the thing is, if it was really that easy, would it be any fun at all? Yeah, probably. But what I'm really trying to get at is that all his power comes with a few catches. Though that first one probably isn't intentional. Gunvolt's blasts are impressive and flashy to look at to be sure. In fact, the entire game looks fantastic, harkening back to that SNES era, but never quite limiting itself to it. But sometimes less is more. Gunvolt's flashy blasts can kind of make it tough to actually see what your opponents are doing, thus making it much harder to dodge attacks. And with a game like this, especially against those bosses, you really need to learn your enemies' patterns, their attack style, get down their timing, etc, etc, if you really want to stand a chance. So laying on that trigger button as much as possible might not be the smartest move, especially when you look at the other limitation, your power supply. Gunvolt is an absolute beast, but even he can only handle so much. So whenever you lay on the juice, a meter will appear below him to symbolize his power. Push that meter to the max and you'll end up overheating, leaving you with nothing but your tag gun for a few seconds, which in a fast-paced boss fight feels like eternity. Plus, attacking isn't the only drain on your battery. Abilities like double jumps and air dashes can also spike your power, It is so easy to be on the attack, then suddenly have to jump or dash to avoid damage, only to end up overheating because you wasted too much beforehand. But it doesn't have to be like that. If you slam on your brakes and just wait a moment, you'll recharge automatically. You can also manually recharge by double tapping down on the D-pad for even faster recharges. Because learning when to attack and when to recharge is key for not only coming out on top, but also for maximizing your score, experience, and rewards. And as we'll soon see, your electricity does more than just attack. Your electric aura can also act as a shield. It's used to get through puzzles using magnetism, and for some reason causes Gunvolt to feather fall. Yeah, don't really get that one, but hey, has its uses. Getting past the opening stage, Mega Man fans will find a very familiar looking scenario. 6 stages that you can tackle in any order you please. Except that here, there are no weaknesses, so order mostly doesn't matter. Though it was kind of a douche move that the first stage, the water themed level, really does beg for you to have unlocked either the double jump or the air dash first. And in order to do so, you gotta rank high. Definitely one of the other more enticing elements of this game is that as you play through each stage, you have a score which grows from taking down enemies, boosted by increasing how many times they're tagged, how many there are, and how little damage you take. And while the game does feature an easy and hard mode to choose from for that more traditional difficulty setup, it's the modifier settings that really stand out. The default mode will have it so that taking a hit will drop your score all the way back to 0. But if that's too frustrating for you, you can always set it so that your score is retained no matter what, or only drops after a few hits. But neither will increase your score as much, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. And it's also really worth noting that the enemies in Gunvolt aren't nearly as cheap as they are in the Mega Man games, because they're not constantly respawning or cheap-shotting me while I'm platforming. So really, I just wasn't getting as frustrated, and I was having a lot more fun overall because of it. And I'm sure that there were many who will just scoff at the easier difficulty. Where's that classic hardcore challenge? Again, there is a hard difficulty setting and lots of extra challenges for that group. But overall, honestly, Gunvolt just feels more balanced. Most hits I took felt like they were my own fault for being too impatient or just plain reckless, costing me my higher scores. But also never feeling like it was impossible to clear long stretches flawlessly, which is something I don't usually tend to do. But Gunvolt very much incentivizes replaying stages for multiple reasons. There's the traditional ones like time trials, but there's also accomplishing challenges for loot, racking up higher scores for loot drops, which is how you unlock the upgrades and abilities like double jump, and there's even a level up system for unlocking new special attacks. Not to mention, if you want to get the true ending, you gotta collect all the Chaos Emeralds. No, seriously. So yeah, you'll probably be passing through each stage a couple of times, which sounds like a pain, but it's not. All the stages are very linear and pretty short, making it easy to burn through them in 5 to 10 minutes. Especially when you're powered up. Plus, all the stages just look fantastic with great sprite work throughout. And while most of the stages do follow that classic Robot Master theme style, fire, water, grass, they all have a really cool and really unique futuristic industrial spin on them. An underwater facility, a biochemical plant, and I especially love how the grass stage is a scientific facility that's been overrun with monstrous plants and fungi. It's good stuff. And we can't forget about the music either, because man, it rocks. Perfect for a fast-paced action game like this. And man, do they really pull off capturing that style of tunes that you'd expect from the SNES era, only with the occasional bursts of high-energy J-pop thrown in for more cinematic flair, really helping to push this game's narrative. Because, like I said, the cutscenes, while primarily still images, still look good, helping to tell a simple but enjoyable story that helps you stay engaged between all the action and expands the world, like by talking with characters about missions and things like that. Though their way of censoring cussing is kind of cringe-inducing. Though you could just skip all of that if you're just here for the action. But what you definitely shouldn't do is skip out on this game. While it has a few minor scuffs here and there, and it might be a bit too easy for Mega Man vets, there is no denying the excellent graphics and music that throw back to the SNES era while never limiting themselves to it. Controls that feel spot on, fun and fast-paced action platforming, all strung together with a simple but enjoyable story. If you like action platformers, retro games, and especially if you have a hankering for that classic Mega Man X goodness, you owe it to yourself to play Azure Striker Gunvolt. It comes highly recommended.